Think of the most lethal combat techniques in fictional history. Everyone just landed at the same answer: lightsaber techniques. The Star Wars franchise, while known for its epic duels, became 1,000 times more deadly when they revealed the specific techniques that separate masters from Padawans. And that's what today's video is all about: the hidden arsenal of lightsaber combat, the brutal moves the Jedi Council would rather you never learned about, and the psychological warfare that breaks minds before blades even clash. Ultimately, we're answering this question: which technique would make you the deadliest duelist in the galaxy? Sokan. Sokan is a lightsaber combat technique centered entirely around movement and positioning. Rather than meeting an opponent head-on, practitioners use agility, speed, and terrain awareness to create strategic advantages during battle. Sokan practitioners don't just fight, they orchestrate. Every step backward is calculated, every leap serves a purpose. Every pivot redirects not just an attack, but the entire flow of battle. Think Obi-Wan on Mustafar. He didn't beat Anakin through superior strength or speed. He used the environment, the terrain, the high ground itself as his greatest weapon. This technique transforms any location into a tactical advantage. A narrow bridge becomes a choke point. Uneven ground becomes a trap. A simple wall becomes a launching pad for an unexpected angle of attack. Masters of Sokan don't just adapt to their environment, they weaponize it. The beauty of Sokan lies in its patience. While your opponent burns energy with aggressive strikes, you're conserving yours, leading them into increasingly disadvantageous positions until that perfect moment arrives. It's martial arts meets military strategy, and in the right hands, it's absolutely devastating. Ancient Jedi developed this technique during the First Sith Republic War, when lightsaber duels were more tame and focused on precision blade work rather than acrobatics and power blows. But some ancient Jedi Knights sought to change this, creating Sokan to stress the use of quick jumps and somersaults to gain higher ground for both offensive and defensive advantages. The technique eventually became integrated into more comprehensive lightsaber styles like Form 3 Sorisu and Form 4 Ataru. Jarkai. Jarkai isn't just fighting with two lightsabers. True Jarkai creates a seamless storm of offense and defense that overwhelms opponents through precision, not chaos. Just watch Ahsoka in action. One blade parries while the other strikes. One saber controls distance while the other finds openings. It's not about doubling your attacks, it's about doubling your options. Every defensive move sets up an offensive counter, every block flows into a strike. The technique demands absolute mental discipline. You're not just tracking your opponent's blade, you're managing two weapons, calculating twice as many angles, making split-second decisions that would overwhelm most fighters. One moment of hesitation, one lapse in concentration, and those two sabers become liabilities instead of advantages. Asajj Ventress turned Jarkai into an elegant dance of death, her curved hilts creating unpredictable arcs that kept even seasoned Jedi guessing. Count Dooku trained her well. He understood that in skilled hands, dual-wielding isn't just a technique, it's a statement of dominance. In current canon, Jarkai represents any time a Force user dual wields lightsabers. But this creates problems when you compare different practitioners. Ventress shows quick, decisive movements with remnants of Form 2 Makashi, short, rapid movements, followed by longer periods of static positioning. She commonly creates attacks with both lightsabers swinging together rather than in sequence. Ahsoka's approach is completely different. Her Jarkai is fluid, acrobatic, heavily influenced by Form 4 Ataru. Her movements flow like water, one strike leading seamlessly into the next. The contrast proves that Jarkai and canon should be viewed as foundational training that practitioners then adapt to their preferred forms. Tràkata. Tràkata exploits the one unique property of lightsabers that no other weapon possesses: the ability to turn on and off instantly. This technique was so controversial that both Jedi and Sith considered it almost unsportsmanlike. The technique has three primary applications: pass the blade, where you deactivate mid-strike to bypass a block; unbalancing block, where you catch an opponent's blade then deactivate to make them stumble; and flash slash, a lightning-quick activation just long enough to strike before vanishing again. Cal Kestis used this against the Second Sister, deactivating his blade during a saber lock to send her stumbling forward, then following up with a devastating force push. The move also appeared in Star Wars visions during the duel between Tajin Crosser and the Elder. So, what's the big deal against Tràkata? The Sith claimed it showed weakness and demonstrated a lack of power, and the Jedi saw it as dishonorable, a refusal to face your opponent head-on. Personally, I think both sides were wrong. Tràkata requires absolute confidence and perfect timing. One miscalculation, and you're standing defenseless against an armed opponent. But then again, I'm just talking here. Shien Reverse Grip. The Shien Reverse Grip transforms traditional lightsaber combat into something far more compact, efficient, and devastatingly unpredictable. With the blade pointing backward along the forearm, every movement becomes tighter, faster, more controlled. You're not making wide, telegraphed swings, you're creating precise arcs that strike from angles opponents never see coming. In close quarters where traditional forms struggle, reverse grip excels. The technique keeps the user compact, allowing quick pivots and surprise attacks that bypass conventional defenses. Ahsoka didn't just popularize this technique, she refined it into an art form. Her reverse grip became so signature that opponents would specifically train to counter it, only to discover she'd already evolved beyond their preparations. Pair reverse grip with traditional forward grip in Jar-Kai, and you've created a combat system that's nearly impossible to predict. The forward blade holds the line, maintaining distance and defense, while the reverse blade cuts beneath and around traditional guards. It's two completely different fighting philosophies working in perfect harmony. The technique rewards agility over brute force, turning movement into lethal artistry. Every defensive position flows naturally into an offensive counter, creating a seamless loop that keeps opponents constantly off balance. The Falling Avalanche. The Falling Avalanche embodies lightsaber combat at its most brutally direct, a devastating overhead strike delivered with the full weight and momentum of the attacker's body. This technique channels sheer kinetic energy, often delivered from above or while leaping downward, turning the lightsaber into a bludgeoning weapon. Form 5 practitioners embrace this move because it embodies their philosophy. The best defense is an unstoppable offense. The technique doesn't give opponents options, it forces a choice. Get out of the way or get crushed. Defenders who try to parry risk being staggered or knocked off balance entirely. The avalanche is particularly effective when delivered from elevation or during a force-enhanced leap. The added momentum transforms the lightsaber from a precision instrument into something closer to a sledgehammer. It's not elegant, and it doesn't try to be. This is lightsaber combat as pure kinetic warfare. Anakin Skywalker frequently employed variations of this technique, channeling his frustration and raw power into single, overwhelming strikes. The psychological impact is just as important as the physical force. Facing a falling avalanche is like staring down an incoming meteor. The Saber Swarm. The Saber Swarm unleashes a relentless barrage of strikes, designed to overwhelm defenses through sheer volume and speed. This technique finds particular favor among practitioners of Ataru and Jar-Kai, styles known for their aggressive, acrobatic, and fluid attack patterns. Form 4 Ataru emphasizes speed, agility, and continuous motion, enabling practitioners to maintain the high tempo that feeds directly into the Saber Swarm's execution. By combining leaps, spins, and rapid strikes, Ataru users generate a dizzying barrage that keeps opponents off balance. The goal isn't necessarily to land a killing blow, it's to force mistakes, create openings, and exhaust the opponent's ability to defend. Spinning strikes flow into overhead chops, which transition into horizontal slashes, which become thrusting attacks, all delivered at a pace that would leave most fighters gasping for breath. The psychological effect matches the physical assault. Facing a Saber Swarm is like standing in a hurricane of plasma. Even skilled duelists can become overwhelmed by the constant pressure, leading to the exact mistakes the attacker is trying to force. Jar-Kai practitioners can amplify this technique exponentially. With two blades creating independent attack patterns, the Saber Swarm becomes a three-dimensional maze of strikes that can approach from any angle at any moment. Velocities. Velocities represent the foundation that makes all other techniques possible. These fast-paced rhythmic sparring sessions focus on speed, timing, and flow rather than winning or losing. They're designed to build the instinctive responses that allow a Jedi to shift seamlessly between offense and defense without conscious thought. The training emphasizes muscle memory development for quick transitions between offensive and defensive postures. Practitioners learn to control the pace of combat and respond instinctively to their opponent's movements. It's the difference between knowing how to drive and being a Formula One racer. In Star Wars Legends, velocities appear in Jedi training manuals and stories, such as Knights of the Old Republic and Tales of the Jedi. They provide a safe method for preparing for real combat while minimizing injury risk. Though not explicitly named in the films, the fast and rhythmic lightsaber duels in the Clone Wars reflect Velocity's essence: speed, rhythm, and control, rather than brute force. These training methods were considered essential for any serious duelist in the expanded universe. They represent the Jedi commitment to constant improvement and disciplined preparation, qualities that often mean the difference between life and death when facing a Sith Lord. Mou Kei. Mou Kei represents lightsaber combat at its most brutal, techniques specifically designed for dismemberment and permanent disabling of opponents. This style focuses on severing limbs or appendages to quickly disable an enemy, leaving lasting physical and psychological scars. The technique demands intense control and accuracy despite its violent nature. It's surgical in its precision, but barbaric in its intent, the perfect embodiment of Sith philosophy. Practitioners don't just seek to win, they aim to send a message through calculated cruelty. Jedi rarely practice or use these techniques due to their commitment to preserving life and finding peaceful solutions. The Jedi Code emphasizes defense, control, and using only necessary force. But Sith warriors embrace Mou Kei's psychological impact. Nothing breaks an enemy's will quite like watching their sword arm hit the ground. Historically, Mou Kei was documented in Sith combat training, where precision strikes aim to sever hands, arms, or legs, effectively crippling foes in brutal fashion. Sith like Darth Malgus and Asajj Ventress demonstrated elements of this technique in combat, using vicious strikes to disable key opponents swiftly. The technique exemplifies the dark side's ruthless and merciless nature. It's not about quick, clean kills. Mou Kei is about removing an opponent's ability to fight while leaving them alive to remember the encounter. Sai. Sai transforms acrobatic movement into tactical advantage through precise timing and spatial awareness. This technique involves leaping or flipping over an opponent to gain positional superiority, most commonly associated with Form 4 Ataru. By somersaulting or vaulting over an enemy during combat, a practitioner accomplishes multiple objectives simultaneously: evading the current attack, bypassing the opponent's guard entirely, and landing in perfect position for a counterattack. It's misdirection in motion. The technique demands precise timing, spatial awareness, and mastery of the Force to execute safely. Without proper control, it leaves the practitioner exposed mid-air. However, when used correctly, Sai disrupts the opponent's rhythm and opens vulnerabilities that would be difficult to access from the front. Yoda was a master of this technique, using his small stature and Force-enhanced agility to constantly reposition himself during combat. What appeared to be simple acrobatics was actually sophisticated battlefield tactics designed to maximize his advantages while minimizing his physical limitations. Ahsoka employed variations of Sai throughout her career, turning flashy acrobatics into lethal misdirection. The key lies in making the movement serve multiple purposes. It's not just about looking impressive, it's about gaining tactical superiority through superior positioning. Shiim. Shiim represents the art of ending conflicts without ending lives. These precise, non-lethal strikes target an opponent's weapon or limb with calculated force intended to disarm or temporarily incapacitate without causing serious harm. The technique requires exceptional finesse, control, and perfect timing, qualities Jedi cultivate through disciplined training. Practitioners must possess the skill to strike with surgical precision while maintaining the restraint to avoid lethal force. Jedi often employ Shiim in situations where mercy and restraint are paramount, such as arrests, negotiations, or controlled sparring matches. The goal remains clear: end the conflict with minimal damage while preserving life whenever possible. In practice, Shiim strikes can quickly neutralize threats without escalating violence. aligning closely with the Jedi Code's emphasis on peace and defense rather than aggression. This makes Shiim ideal for Jedi peacekeepers who must maintain order while minimizing harm. Extended Star Wars lore often features Shiim and Jedi initiate training as part of early education, emphasizing the importance of control and compassion in combat. While rarely highlighted in films, its principles appear in many Jedi sparring scenes where strikes are measured and non-lethal. Cho Mai, Cho Mok, and Cho Sun. These three interconnected techniques form a comprehensive approach to lightsaber combat that emphasizes strategy over raw power. Each technique serves a specific tactical purpose while working in harmony with the others. Cho Mai focuses on exploiting weaknesses through quick, targeted strikes aimed at weak points in an opponent's defense. It's about accuracy and timing, ending fights efficiently with minimal effort. The technique requires patience and observation to identify those split-second openings that determine victory. Cho Mok centers on controlling the opponent's weapon or movements through trapping and redirection. It forces enemies into defensive positions, allowing the practitioner to dominate the flow of combat. This technique transforms superior positioning into tactical advantage. Cho Sun emphasizes strategic footwork and positioning to maintain balance, evade attacks, and set up precise counterstrikes. The technique helps practitioners control distance and timing while creating opportunities for decisive action. Together, these techniques represent a thinking fighter's approach to lightsaber combat. Instead of overwhelming opponents with power or speed, they rely on patience, observation, and tactical superiority. While not as flashy as aggressive styles, they provide reliable, controlled tools to outmaneuver and disarm foes. Dun Mok. Dun Mok represents psychological warfare at its most refined, using taunts, distractions, and verbal manipulation to destabilize an opponent's focus during combat. Rather than relying solely on physical skill, this technique targets the mind, breaking down confidence and composure in the heat of battle. Darth Vader mastered this technique through his mere presence. His mechanical breathing, imposing stature, and cutting remarks were all designed to unsettle opponents and cloud their judgment. "Your lack of faith is disturbing" wasn't just a threat. It was calculated psychological warfare. The technique works because lightsaber combat requires absolute focus and emotional control. Introduce some doubt, fear, or anger into an opponent's mind, and their technique suffers. Their timing becomes imprecise, their decisions clouded by emotion. Emperor Palpatine used Dun Mok to devastating effect against Luke Skywalker, turning the young Jedi's love for his friends into a weapon against him. "Strike me down with your hatred." That wasn't mere taunting, it was a calculated attempt to corrupt Luke through his own emotions. Sith Lords like Sidious and Vader famously employed this technique to gain psychological advantages over their opponents. Their intimidating presence and cutting words often caused hesitation or anger, clouding judgment and opening vulnerabilities that pure swordplay might never create. The opening stance. The opening stance employs masterful misdirection through casual or neutral posturing. By adopting a relaxed appearance, combatants conceal their true intentions and level of readiness, luring opponents into making premature or poorly judged attacks. This subtle deception forces enemies to reveal their strategy first, providing valuable intelligence about their preferred techniques and tactical approach. The psychological advantage is enormous. Opponents often underestimate a fighter who appears casual, leading to overconfidence and tactical mistakes. In lightsaber duels, the opening moments are critical. Gaining the psychological upper hand can decide the entire fight before the first strike is thrown. The opening stance transforms apparent vulnerability into strategic advantage, making your enemy commit to actions while keeping your own capabilities hidden. Masters of this technique understand that combat begins long before blades ignite. By controlling the opponent's perception and expectations, they can dictate the terms of engagement from the very first moment. Sai Cha. Sai Cha represents the decisive finishing technique designed to end duels with surgical precision. This clean, precise strike is intended to conclude combat immediately, often through critical disablement or decapitation. The technique isn't reckless or rushed. It requires perfect timing, absolute focus, and complete control. A Sai Cha strike exploits the smallest opening, delivering lethal force with surgical accuracy that leaves no room for recovery or counterattack. Both Jedi and Sith reserve this move for moments when hesitation could cost the duel. It embodies the principle of efficiency in combat. Strike once, strike true, and end the battle swiftly. There's no second chance with Sai Cha, its commitment to finality. The technique represents the ultimate expression of lightsaber mastery. All the training, all the preparation, all the tactical maneuvering leads to this single moment of decisive action. It's the art of bringing conflict to a swift, definitive close through perfect execution. And that wraps our deep dive into lightsaber techniques, each one forged with its own purpose, philosophy, and precision. From Sokan's battlefield chess to Tràkata's deadly deception, from the brutal efficiency of Mou Kei to the merciful precision of Shiim. These techniques prove that mastery goes far beyond knowing the 7 forms. Each technique demands its own form of expertise. Some require physical prowess, others mental discipline. Some embody Jedi ideals of mercy and restraint, while others reflect the Sith embrace of power and domination. But all of them share one common thread. They separate legends from footnotes. In lightsaber combat, the blade is only as strong as the mind wielding it. These techniques aren't just about physical skill, they're about tactical thinking, psychological warfare, and the kind of split-second decision-making that keeps you alive when facing down a Sith Lord. And if you're hungry for more Star Wars mastery, hit subscribe and stay locked in. Because in the end, knowledge of these techniques might just be the difference between victory and becoming one with the Force a little sooner than planned. And if you want to go deeper, check out the 7 lightsaber form breakdowns we already have on the channel. They'll sharpen your skills and give you the full picture. Thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.